Hello and welcome, star people. It is 8 p.m. Your intrepid star guide and cosmic detective, back with another episode of the Outlaw Astrology podcast, and we are talking about our second court card exploration. This week we're focusing on the Knights. So we're going to be talking about the Knights as mutable, active expression of the suit, and exploring the movement, the change, the pursuit, the dynamic energy of wands, cups, swords, and pentacles. And so a little housekeeping before we get there. This is a second of 4 court card episodes mixed with astrology, with the Knights representing the air element and the energy of swift action, transition, and adaptability. Further on, we have social media outlets where you can interact if you like. You can find us on Instagram, Pinterest, and YouTube. Those links will be listed in the show notes. There is also a paid and free version of the Outlaw Astrology's The Daily Stargazer newsletter, which comes with its own podcast. You'll find that link also in the show notes, and we would greatly appreciate it if you could like, review, and subscribe to our podcast via whatever podcast platform you listen on, but specifically Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Amazon Podcasts, and also Apple Podcasts. And thank you very much for listening, and now onward. And so this week we're going to be talking about the Knights, and this is called the era of their suit. So the Knights represent the air element expressing their suit, the swift movement, the intellectual navigation, and the warrior traveler archetype. And so Knights are embodying active pursuit, change in motion, restless energy, and the drive to move toward or away from something. So Knights are the doers in transition. They're not as grounded. So here's the thing about pages. Knights are moving into action. Pages are still learning the energy of the suit. Now, typically what we're going to hear when we talk about the Golden Dawn, we're thinking how grounded pages are. I do not see pages as grounded, even though they are labeled the earth element according to Golden Dawn. Pages are grounded in what they don't know. They don't know a lot, and so whatever their beliefs happen to be, based on their lived experience, which is, not going to be excessive, exhaustive, or even deep at that point, then yes, we could consider that grounded, but not necessarily. Pages don't master things. They're still learning things. They're simply grounded in what they know against versus what they do not know, and experience, lived experience, will tell the true tale of page energy. And it also doesn't have like the wisdom of lived experience, of having skill, the mostly lived experience you might get from the page, from the queens and the kings, So it's actively, the Knights are actively involved in a quest, a journey, a challenge of their suit. And so Knights indicate also movement, arrival or departure, people, situations. It's also swift changes and periods of active pursuit or transition. So consider Knights to be movement, change. They have enough experience and enough agency to make decisions for themselves, for good or for ill, and to go in this particular direction and deal with those repercussions and or consequences. And so let me introduce the 4 Knights of the Minor Arcana. And it is called Air of Fire, Water, Air, and Earth. So, the Knight of Wands, and once again, this is Golden Dawn. This is not my own personal one, and the reason why we're doing this, as I've said before, but to reiterate, it is a good foundation. You're going to see this particular lineage and derivations of this Golden Dawn lineage pretty much all across the board in tarot and astrology when they're used together, because these people, the Golden Dawn, were ceremonial mages, ceremonial magicians. And so the whole point of the exercise was to create a visual representation of that practice. And so Rider-Waite-Smith, which is the common tarot deck, is based on the images and the thinking and the reasoning that these ceremonial mages at the late 19th, early 20th century in the UK, this is how they saw the world, this is how they navigated magic. Okay, so that's my caveat there. And so the Knight of Wands is air of fire. As we're talking about impulsive action, passionate pursuit, swift movement toward adventure. This is the fiery crusader charging forward with enthusiasm and also impatience. There's an urgency with the Knight of Wands that I need to get there. I need to get there. It needs to happen today. I need hurry, 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 hurry. And that kind of energy can be explosive. And because it's Wands energy, which is also fire energy, it can flame out rather quickly. And so that urgency, that enthusiasm can, engulf. And it can be a good thing or a bad thing depending on the situation. Now, when we're looking at next the Knight of Cups, that's air of water, and that's romantic idealism. That's emotional pursuit. It's the messenger of love and moving gracefully toward what stirs the heart. So the messenger of love, relationship, harmony, and what stirs the heart. Also, I would say healing as well. And Knight of Cups is learning to navigate relationships, learning how to have a right relationship with all people. Well, let me dial that back. Learning who are your people, who you can be in right relationship with, because not everyone is going to be for you. I am not the sort of person that believes I can love everyone, and I don't believe others can either. I believe that we all have a certain way that we're wired, and that wiring is going to predispose us towards certain ideas, certain preferences, certain biases, we're going to invest in this and not that, we're interested in that, not this kind of vibe. And so the Knight of Cups is learning how, learning the difference between romantic idealism, meaning that all's fair in love and war kind of vibe, but I think it's more like all's fair in love. That love is the end all and be all, that everybody is this is the person whom I might say would be in love with love. Everybody's trying to be in love. Love is the whole point. Everybody is trying to find their soulmate. This is the Knight of Cups. The Knight of Cups is looking for their soulmate, looking for a twin flame, looking for soulmates, period. The belief, the idealism in that all the movies, the sentimental movies, the gushy, the swoozy, the falling head over heels, being deeply in love, being in love with love, is a very Knight of Cups thing. And when we speak of romantic idealism, that is what we're talking about. When we talk about emotional pursuit, it's what is pulling you. So the Knight of Cups, when it appears, what are we being pulled toward? Are we being pulled toward healing? Are we being pulled toward a connection? Are we being pulled toward a feeling in addition to healing? Okay? And it's also the messenger of love, the messenger of healing, the messenger of relationship and harmony. And so we're always moving, the whole point is to move gracefully toward what stirs the heart, because the whole point for the Knight, ideally, of Cups is that it's moving toward what stirs the heart. Whereas the Knight of Wands is a fiery crusader. It's charging toward enthusiasm, and all that sort of thing. What is it impatient about? It is impatient. It wants to get somewhere. I'm going over there and I want to get there today. I want to be there 5 minutes before I arrive. That's the Knight of Wands energy. Knight of Cups energy is what stirs the heart. What path has heart, because a path with heart is the emotional path. What is turning us on? What is lighting us up? What is buoying us with feelings of lightness, poignancy, sweetness, tenderness, joy? That is the Knight of Cups. That is air of water. Now next we're moving to the Knight of Swords, air of air. And so the Knight of Swords is intellectual assertiveness, mental speed, rushing into battle with ideas and words, the fierce pursuit of truth at the cost of diplomacy. That's really interesting. And so consider the swords. Swords cut. That's why most of the time you're going to see them associated with air, communication, thought, thinking. Why? Because they cut. And the reason why they are associated is because of a word, a Latin word, Viscere, I believe is the word, and it means to cut. And if you're going to choose something, you're going to make a decision, the word decision derives from the word which means to cut, which means if you're going to make a choice, you're going to cut off other options. If you decide you're going to go attend university over at University A, you cannot also simultaneously attend University B unless you have a time turner or some sort of Harry Potter's type magic going for you, which in this world, sorry to say, we do not have that tragedy, but we don't. So when you decide something, you're cutting off all other options, which may be just as valuable, just as viable, and just as meaningful. And that's why decision making is hard. And so, Knight of Swords is air of air. It's learning to be rigorous, because the Knight of Air is learning about the mental process. It's learning about how to think critically being the point. It is to pursue truth, to pursue wisdom without overly focusing on the cost of diplomacy. So diplomacy is peacemaking. It's harmony chasing, is for want of a better word, because chase is a perfect word for a knight. It is chasing harmony at all costs, whereas the Knight of Wands is less interested in diplomacy. It's more interested in, I said what I said type of vibe. I don't like this, I like that. I said what I said. So if you're disagreeing with someone and they're like, well, did you mean to say it in this lovely diplomatic way that hurts no one's feelings? The Knight of Swords is not interested in not hurting feelings. It's not that they want to hurt people's feelings. It's that the primary focus is going to be on the truth, or on the facts, rather than what is comfortable for other people. So when we hear diplomacy, what we're talking about is making things small, crafting an illusion that's rosy and pretty, much like a gorgeous iridescent bubble floating through space. That iridescent bubble is diplomacy. It's making certain that everybody likes what they hear and they feel comfortable and their beliefs aren't challenged and their feelings aren't challenged and are not uncomfortable or anything of that nature. And the Knight of Swords is F to that. They're giving zero of the F's on that. They don't care as much. Truth is what's important, not other people's comfort. Now, here's what I have to say on that. Here's the caveat, if it could be called that. It is not possible to learn. It is not possible to move through this world. It's not possible to have an opinion. It's not possible to have a belief system and to share that belief, or to share those opinions with others without encountering dissent, discomfort, and upset, and even upset in the form of irritation, vexation, confusion, anger, etc. It is not possible to meet the world without that. And so that is what the Knight of Swords is going to learn. That discomfort is along for the ride. In the pursuit of truth, you're always going to run up against illusion. You're going to run up against a learning curve. That learning curve, as you go all through that curve, it's not going to feel comfortable all the time. It's going to feel very uncomfortable. Change is not comfortable. And if you're going to pursue truth fiercely, because you'll note, if you look at the Rider-Waite-Smith renditions of all the knights, they're wearing suits of armor. That means to protect them. They all have weapons. They all have horses. Horses are independents, but they're also modes of transportation, modes of movement. They're trying to say, through pictures, the horses, they're moving. It's changing. It's independence. It's fierce change. And that suit of armor is protection, meaning that they're expecting to meet up with adversity, because the night energy is change, and change is not something that human beings are known to like. Now, moving on, we've got the Knight of Pentacles. That's the heir of Earth, and this is methodical progress, steady reliability, practical movement toward material goals and objectives, and it's a diligent worker who advances slowly but surely. And so the Knight of Pentacles is your grounded person. You know, they're in it every day, regardless of whether or not the gains are big. They note the small gains because at first the gains are going to be very small, and you have to keep working until you hit that pivotal period where the gains start to accumulate and thereby get bigger as you move on. And so the Knight of Pentacles is learning how to be practical, how to sustain that practicality, and how to be consistent and show up as well as they can, as often as they can. Now, a note about consistency. Consistency has nothing whatsoever to do with turning up every day to do the thing. Only if you've said you're going to turn up to do the thing. If you have said that I'm doing the thing 3 days a week, or 2 days a week, or 1 day a week, then turning up consistently is turning up when one has agreed or said one is going to turn up. So the Knight of Pentacles is learning that if I say I'm going to work out, I'm going to work on my finances, I'm going to work on my career, I'm going to work on this skill that would advance my career, they're going to expect to move forward gradually. They're going to move forward steadfastly, and they're learning how to measure their energy so that they can make sustained effort, because effort that burns out or craps out or just stops or just scatters is not useful. So the Knight of Pentacles is learning how to focus their energy and eliminate as many distractions as possible. Now, if we go back to the Knight of Swords, distractions is something the Knight of Swords is also going to be working on. It's how to, but the distractions are going to be different. But so having spoken on that, let me finish up with the Knight of Pentacles, and then we'll talk about that. So, like I said, it is steady progress, rather like a laser beam. And so the Knight of Wands, Cups, Swords, and Pentacles are learning how to have sustained energy toward the point of their suit. So when it's fire, it's being enthusiastic. It is being a crusader. It's charging forward, and it's also being a little impatient. This needs to get done, and that means if it needs to be done, and it needs to be done now, it means the diplomacy is going to go straight out the window, and caring excessively about what other people feel or think or whether they're uncomfortable is not going to be in high regard. And if we're looking at the Knight of Cups, it's what stirs the heart. And so it's nice that everybody else thinks that you should think with your brain and not include emotion here, but the Knight of Cups is saying if the path doesn't have heart, it isn't a path, and it's not going to be interesting, and you're not going to be able to stay on it. And the Knight of Swords is talking about getting rid of distractions of other opinions, especially if those opinions are based on anecdotal evidence. Anecdotal evidence is lovely. However, it is not the same as facts and empirical data. And what the Knight of Swords wants is that data as stripped of anecdotal posturing or hype or hubris as possible. It wants the unvarnished truth, and the unvarnished truth is not comfortable. Not everybody has the capacity to hold that. And if you're going after truth and an unvarnished truth, it also means diplomacy is going to fly right out the window like a white dove flying out the window. And Knight of Pentacles is learning about methodical, consistent progress, which means distractions, which means some of those distractions are going to be people coming along saying, hey, how about this? Hey, let's do this. Hey, what, you want to try this? Maybe you should do this. Maybe you should do this. My grandfather did that. My aunt thinks this. My best friend thinks this. I know a person who did that, and this is what happened, blah, blah, blah. And so the Knight of Pentacles has got to be like, interesting, and I'm still going this way because I have decided through my own knowing and also through my own preparation and organization that this is the best process, the best path, the best road forward for me, and I'm going to stick to it. But thank you for all of your feedback. Thank you for all of your unsolicited feedback is how I would amend that. So when we talk about the Knights, they're channeling their essence through the air swiftness, the changeable influence of air, or making kinetic movement through movement, kinetic movement through actually movement, which would be a little bit of fire, but also earth, pursuit, and active engagement. So all of this is all Knight's energy. Knight energy tends to be swift. It is, even in the face of fire, it's like, do this now. Cups, this is how I feel right now. Swords, this is what's on my mind right now. Knight of Pentacles, this is what's in front of me to focus on right now. This is the path in front of me. This is my objective right now. Okay? So let's seem to have lost my place here. Okay, so let's do a little practical reading with the Knights. Let's think about questions of movement and pursuit. So, as I've said, the Knights speak to questions. It's about action, change, pursuit, travel, arriving, departing, those sort of energies, and also periods of active transition. So, here's an example. Let's say someone asks, when will things change? Okay, so a note about questions. If we can get as specific a question as we can, sometimes the question's going to come like this. It's going to be something more vague. And that's fine. But a note, if you're reading for yourself or a friend, you're going to need to make this a little bit more specific. So when will things change? When will my career change? And you draw the Knight of Wands. So you can interpret it as change in your career can happen swiftly and with intensity. So prepare for rapid movement. And if you're going to be, that energy is going to be highly passionate and so may lead one to behave impulsively. So that's going to need to be tempered with stepping back every once in a while to assess the changes being made in the career. Okay? So let's try, when will my things in my relationship change? And we draw the Knight of Cups. And so we can say that the change is going to come and it's going to be more fluid. It's going to be more shape-shifty. I would say it's going to be rapid, but I wouldn't say it's going to be mostly heart-centered. So what are you feeling about this relationship? Focus on your feelings. Focus on what's going on in your heart right now. What's the feeling when you think of this relationship? How do you feel about it? What do you feel? And where do you feel it? Because emotion is, I feel a little, doubtful. Okay, where do you feel that? In my heart and in my solar plexus. Okay, that is making this a felt sense. That is the feeling. And so, like I said, change is coming, but it's going to come in a more fluid way, a more gentle way. It's going to, I'd say, prepare for, I wouldn't say, let's see, prepare. How do I want to say this? Because it's becoming difficult. So I'd say this is about love. Move gracefully. Provide yourself with as much grace as you can. Emotions tell the truth in the moment, but they do not tell the truth for all time. So keep on top of how you feel, and when that emotion changes, track it. because emotions flow like water, and they flow, they ebb and they flow. So notice the ebbs and the flows and learn to ride those ebbs and flows with as much grace as you can. And also be aware of romantic idealism. So is it possible that this relationship is idealistic? It's being idealized. Are we idealizing the other person? Are we idealizing this relationship? Is it like writ large on the stars, like a motion picture, big screen romance? Or is it quieter, like a Jane Austen Pride and Prejudice type of romance? I mean, what are we working with here? It's best to note that, and also note when changes occur in emotion. Okay? And so that is one way we could read. Now, let's try timing. So, nights are about swift timing, and that could be days to weeks rather than months. So we're talking about transitional periods, arrivals and departures, or significant people or opportunities. And so if we're asking the question, when will my finances change? And we draw the Knight of Swords, we're talking about days and weeks. So what I would say is, okay, if we're talking about, in this particular thing, we're talking about air, that's very swift, it's very slippery. I'd say make note of any ideas before taking action. You want to make certain that things are viable before making any changes. So prepare for rapid movement, and prepare also for mental speed. So you're going to need to be able to make decisions like snap, snap, snap. Rushing into battle with ideas and words, I would say that since speed is going to be of the essence, time will be of the essence, as will speed, you're probably going to need to make decisions on the sly, on the flippity-flop very quickly, and you're going to have to probably learn to do damage control, because air energy is swift, and as I said, it's going to be at the cost of diplomacy. So make decisions now and ask for forgiveness later is pretty much going to be the advice I would give. And so timing, like I said, now if we're looking at Knights of Wands, we're looking at Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius season. And we're looking at Knight of Cups, we're looking at Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces. If we're looking at the Knight of Swords, we're looking at Gemini, Libra, Aquarius. And the Knight of Pentacles would be Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. And so during those seasons, if you're feeling, that frisky night energy, you can pull out the card corresponding to the element of the season. So as I said, right now, as during this recording, we are in Aquarius season, the start of it. And so if I pulled the Knight of Swords, then I could apply it to Aquarius energy. And the example would be Aquarius energy is being able to step back from social conditioning, from the overculture's pressure and demands, to ask questions about who gets what and when. And this is outsider energy. This is other energy. This is token energy. And so when we're looking at this energy, it's like, okay, who gets to be seen and heard? Because the sun is in its element in Leo, and Leo's about being seen and heard, and in an authentic way. So, but who gets to do that is the question. And why do they get to do that? And if they're doing that, and who's left out of that equation, and what are they doing? And so Aquarius energy is asking, the Knight of Swords is asking during Aquarius season, who's left out of the conversation? Who doesn't even get to have a voice in the discussion? Who are the outsiders? Who are the misfits? Who are the black unicorns? Because it's time to amplify their voices. And since it's the sun in Aquarius, This is about consciousness and also will. And so our consciousness is learning to individuate in our own unconventional and unique way, because Uranus in Taurus is currently calling the shots. It's about the 28th degree moving into the 29th, and will eventually enter right back into Gemini. And that means slow and deliberate, at our rhythm, at our pace, what's going on in our ecosystem. We are up-leveling, we are disrupting our ecosystem. Taurus is very much about ecosystems. What ecosystem is around us and what needs to be disrupted? What needs to be denied? What needs to be decoded? That's all Uranus energy. So wherever Taurus happens to be in the chart, that is what's going on. And since Uranus is the shot caller for all this Aquarius energy, it's slow and deliberate change on your terms according to your rhythms and your cycles, okay? So that is another way that Night's energy can be used. Once again, Nights can be used by element, so you can take the Night via the element it belongs to. Wands is fire, Cups is water, Swords is air, and Pentacles is earth, and work with that during any particular season. You can also do it if you follow the moon, you can use the Nights when it comes to following the moon, if you so choose. And so it is swift energy, swift timing. This would be days and weeks rather than months. So this is like snap, snap, quick energy, okay? And so this is one of the ways you can read practically with it. So here is a key takeaway. The Nights teach us that movement itself is a skill. Whether we're rushing, whether we're steady, whether we're moving consistently, or kind of tripping over our own feet. The key is intentional pursuit aligned with the suit's wisdom. Okay? And that is the element. And so here's a thought. Draw a Night card and take one action today that moves you towards your objectives. So notice whether you're moving with fire, water, air, or earth energy. And so, next up, we'll be doing the Queens. And by doing, I mean we'll be talking about them. I didn't mean it to make it sound like that, but ha 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 anyway. Anyway, the Queens are exploring the fixed, the mastered receptivity, the sovereign power of each suit. So basically, the role model of the suit. And so thank you very much, stargazers and star people, for listening in and tuning in today. I appreciate you as always. We have social media, Instagram, Pinterest, etc. in the show notes. And once again, we also have a newsletter, paid and free. You will find that link and information in the show notes. I appreciate you very much for taking time out to be with me today. And peace and star magic.